You're deep in conversation. The replies are quick, the banter is sharp, the connection feels real. And then, mid-exchange, the person on the other end completely vanishes. No explanation given, no goodbye, just silence. Modern digital flirting relies on a specific biological foundation. This diagram shows how every notification triggers a quick hit of dopamine. Because these messages arrive unpredictably, they create a loop of intermittent reinforcement. Your brain learns to crave that anticipation, building a highly motivated chemical habit around this new person. When you are ghosted, that steady dopamine supply is instantly severed. Your brain expects a reward and receives nothing, forcing your neurological system into an immediate, severe chemical withdrawal phase. If that person had sent a text saying, "I don't think this is working out," it would sting, but a direct rejection provides a terminal signal. That signal allows the brain to process the end of the bond and begin reallocating emotional resources. Ghosting bypasses social etiquette and hits the brain at its most primitive level. It creates a sudden biochemical deficit that our evolutionary biology is simply not equipped to process. Because you never received that final confirmation, your brain enters a state of ambiguous loss. This is a state of chronic hyperarousal, where your internal threat detection system sounds the alarm while trying to resolve incomplete data. This model isolates the specific region responsible for processing that missing signal, the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC. Right now, in a person who has been ghosted, this region is throbbing. MRI data reveals that the ACC processes social rejection using the same neural matrix that processes physical injury. These two activation patterns are identical. To your nervous system, an unanswered text registers with the same biological urgency as a broken bone. Without a definitive end, the amygdala remains trapped in a sustained threat scanning loop. It keeps searching for an answer that isn't coming, which prevents the ACC's pain sequence from shutting down. The chest tightness, the waves of nausea, and the inability to focus are the predictable outputs of an activated pain matrix. The agony of being ghosted is a literal neurological response to an untreated wound. To move past the pain, we have to look inside the person who disappears. While it feels to you like a calculated act of cruelty, the reality is often a moment of complete psychological failure. Many people who ghost are driven by an avoidant attachment style. These are individuals whose early developmental environments taught them that emotional closeness is unsafe, and that vulnerability is a threat to their autonomy. For an avoidant person, the basic requirements of closing a relationship, the confrontation, the conflict, or even a simple goodbye, feel unbearable. They perceive these relational demands as existential threats that must be evaded. The ghosting occurs during an emergency regulatory maneuver. When the internal pressure of a relational demand exceeds the person's capacity to manage it, they execute a total withdrawal to regain their sense of safety. This silence communicates nothing about your worth or value. It is structural data. It reveals the exact point where the ghoster's psychological architecture encountered a demand it could not meet. Our digital interfaces actively accelerate this avoidance. We navigate a landscape designed for rapid, disposable connections, where disappearing is as easy as swiping a screen. Digital communication also creates a massive biological deficit. Face-to-face interaction activates mirror neurons that model the other person's emotions. Text-based communication provides none of those inputs, effectively keeping the ghoster's empathy circuits offline. This enables the ghoster to bypass cognitive dissonance, the severe mental friction that occurs when their behavior contradicts their self-image as a good person. They resolve this friction through rationalization. They tell themselves it's a favor or that it wasn't significant anyway. These stories help them avoid discomfort. Modern technology doesn't just make disappearing easier, it provides a frictionless environment that rewards emotional withdrawal over accountability. For the person left behind, the path forward requires breaking the rumination loop. You cannot wait for an explanation or an apology that is structurally impossible for the ghoster to provide. Healing begins when you proactively categorize the silence itself as the terminal signal. The absence of a response is the definitive answer. When you recognize that the ghoster lacks the exit capacity to end a relationship with integrity, your brain receives the data it needs. The anterior cingulate cortex can finally exit its threat state and begin the recovery sequence. In an era optimized for detachment, survival requires the bravery to value human connection, even when it is not reciprocated. You cannot control someone else's inability to face discomfort, but by choosing to remain emotionally present, you reclaim your own nervous system from a digital landscape built for disposability.